What is good, everyone? For this video I'm bringing another photo walk talk, and this one will be a little different, and I'll be covering the different markets of San Jose, Costa Rica. And this is my second one I've done here in San Jose and the 10th one of all. So be sure to check out some of my other photo walk talks. And before we get into this one though, if you're not familiar with what my photo walk talks are, it's kind of my twist on some of the photo walk videos you might have seen from other photographers, but instead of taking you out on the walk with me, it's more about bringing you back and taking the photos from the walk and learning through them. Because learning through your photos is one of the best ways to improve your photography, and learning through others' photos too. And what I do is I take a small selection of photos from the walk, photos where I think I can share the most insights behind the photos, things that I did to work the scene, maybe things I could have done differently, all the different ways that I read a photo and try to learn from it to improve the next time, and I can share that. And you're going to see more of that when we get into my computer. But then also I have a map and different things where I can show you context of the walk, and if you're ever in San Jose you can take this walk too, and you can also get a feel of the walk. But in this case, like I said, it's a little unique. It's not one specific walk. We're more focusing on the markets of San Jose. In my first photo walk talk I did here in San Jose, we covered Central Avenida and the Central Loop, which definitely check out that video, and if you're ever in San Jose, do that walk. But for this one, we're going to kind of cover a lot of San Jose, the different markets. I've selected 5 markets spanning pretty much the whole city, but they're 5 of the best markets. We have Central Market, which is the oldest market in the city. It's 1880, and it's also the biggest market in the city. And if you ever look up things to do or see in San Jose, Costa Rica, that's always at the top of the list. And then when it comes to other markets, we're going to cover some farmers markets, some weekend markets. We have the Saturday Farmers Market in downtown San Jose. Then there's another Saturday market, but it's the Feria Verde, the Green Market, which has a completely different scene, a little more upscale and hipster a bit, but it's a cool scene too. Then we have the Sunday Farmers Market in Zapote. And then there's Mercado Mayoreo, which also has a flea market in addition to the produce section. So I tried to not only select the 5 best markets in San Jose, but also the 5 markets that span a variety of scenery and interest. And they also span a wide area of San Jose, as you're about to see in the map I created. And for that, let's go into my computer. I'll cover that little map so you can get context of the walk. And if you're in San Jose, you can take this walk too. Then we'll go into the photos and get on with the exercise. So let's go. All right, so here I have a map up of San Jose, as you can see. And we'll get a little closer here. So this is the center of San Jose here. If you saw my last photo walk talk I did here, I covered Central Avenue here and the Loop. And for the markets, we're going to be covering most of this area here, and I made a map so you can see the markets we're covering. So again, here's the center here. Central Avenue goes along here. Here's Parque La Sabana. And for the markets we're going to cover, we have the Central Market here, which is the most famous market, the oldest market in the city. But it's mostly inside, so I don't shoot a lot in there, but I'll show you a couple pictures, mostly on the outside. And then when it comes to the actual real outside markets here, we have the Saturday Farmers Market here. It's the one in the central San Jose down here. We have the Zapote Farmers Sunday Market here, which is the biggest market out of all of these really when it comes to the outside markets. Then we have the Feria Verde, which is the green market. It's on Saturdays. And then we also have Mercado Mayoreo, which has an outside produce market like some of these others, but it also has a flea market, kind of smaller flea market section, but for San Jose, it's the biggest flea market that I've seen here. So you get that kind of different atmosphere too. So for these markets to cover, I covered these in a weekend here, but obviously they take a big area and you have to go on multiple days, since some are just on Saturday, some are on Sunday. But when it comes to these 2 markets here, they're every day, except for I think Central's closed on Sundays though. But you can go to these during the week too, but on the weekend or Saturdays, they're usually the busiest. So let's go in, but before we do, I'm going to cover the questions that I'll go over here real quick so you get an idea of how we're going to be doing this exercise. Now, normally when you look at a photo, you're not going to ask all these questions, of course. It's just, is the photo good or not? Do you like it or not? But when you're trying to learn from photos, there are different questions you can ask, especially when you're talking about your photos. So we're going to go over quick questions. I'll say what works, what doesn't work for me. I'll explain what I was going for, what grabbed me, There should be something in the photo that caught your eye that made you take the photo in the first place. When I teach workshops, a lot of times people can't even explain why they took the photo or what's in it. So you should have some type of idea, even if the photo's not good. And then we'll also go over if there's anything bothering me or I wish could have been. And then from there I'll explain if it was because I could have done something maybe differently or I would have, or maybe there was a challenge that you can't see in the frame, outside the frame, that made me take the photo a certain way, which happens a lot of the time. We're always working through challenges out there, especially with unposed photography. I'll go over how I approach the scene, overall feeling, which is really the most important, and then if there are any lessons taken or emphasized, anything I discovered. So that's what we'll go through. I'm not going to do that for every photo, but anything I can think of that's helpful, different insights. And I always like to mention this before we get into it, but sometimes photos just work. They could be technically broken apart, but if it works, it works. Many times the best photos have a bit of error and luck on the edge of failure, pushing that balance of content and form to its limit. So you don't always want to technically break down every photo, but for this exercise, that's what we're going to do. That's why. And now time for the photos I selected. So now I'm selecting around 13 photos on these photo walk talks, so they're not too long. But in this case, since we're not covering one walk, we're covering 5 different markets. I selected around 2 to 3 of each. So we have, I think, lucky 13 here that we'll go over. But to give you kind of an idea of the different markets atmosphere, and then also to go over the exercise. I select photos where I can talk about the things that I was going for or that worked, but also photos that are not perfect in any way, so there's things that could be different too. So I don't select the best photos, but I try to select photos that are the best for this exercise. So let's start off at the Saturday market in central San Jose right here, and you can get kind of an idea of how the market looks here. It's along a railroad track, one long street, both sides you have the market, and then there's one other street that goes over too for a little bit more market life. But for photography, probably my least, well, maybe second least favorite for street photography, but it's still good to check out. You do have open area here, so you have light, sunlight on one side. These markets usually end around noon. People stay after a little bit, but so you don't get the best light unless you come pretty early when it first opens. But this person here, the reason I took the photo is it's kind of funny to me, all these bags that they're carrying, they're struggling in there. And so just catching that, but when you have people walking by like this, moving, and then a mess back here, it's kind of hard to get a good photo. So it's too messy. It does get kind of the, odd scene of carrying all these bags, but it needs something more for sure. Now here's another part of this market. As you can see, there's that track. Now I like this guy here. I've been to this market a few times now, and he's always here playing the guitar. Now since everyone has to wear a mask in here, he's wearing a mask, but it creates kind of an illusion here where you can't see his face at all. It's just in shadow because he's wearing like a black mask. So I try to catch him up close playing the guitar. Some nice colors here with the blue shirt, red hat, and the blue guitar here. And then try to kind of place him in the middle there, because the biggest problem with this scene is people walking by all the time and it makes a mess behind him. So this was the best shot when I didn't have people walking in the way. Still kind of hard to make it more than it is. Maybe I could have got a little bit higher and above him so that the guitar doesn't go into this right here. But in order to do that, I would have had to raise the camera where I can't see too. But I feel like at some point maybe there'd be a picture here if there was other things to add to it. And the last photo here is just one example of things that you can do at markets. Now, I'm not a huge fan, like I've said in the past, of markets. I always check them out, but a lot of times you get the kind of the same scenes. You have people working their stands, and that's really all you get. I like markets, though, to kind of explore the outside area. In this area, there's really nothing interesting outside this market, but one thing you can do sometimes at markets, because you do have the covers here, and then if you have sunlight, you can play some silhouette and shadow play by getting the back wall here in light, and then they're going to be in complete darkness. So that's what I was playing around with here. And then you had this man standing, and when he kind of lowered, I try to catch him there, kind of creates an illusion, but really it's kind of off balance, and I don't really like this photo at all. But I just kind of picked it just to show you one thing you can do. I mean, there's possibilities if you had some really nice silhouettes working here and you just kind of focused on them, or you had something more interesting here, it would work better. But it's one thing you can do at markets. So now we go to Feria Verde, which this is probably my least favorite market for shooting, partly because it's not very big, and also the light is pretty bad because it's covered in trees right here, and then bright sunlight back here where there's a field for like soccer, things like that. So it's hard to really expose it correctly with the light like that, and it's a messy market. But it's actually an interesting market to go to. It has a very different atmosphere because it's more upscale. It reminds me of more like, you know, I'm from the US, so like California or Portland, where I'm from, Portland, Oregon, kind of a farmer's market there. There's a lot of crafts, handmade soaps, and then there's some produce, organic produce mostly. So it's kind of a trendy place. You're going to see a lot of, this market has the most foreigners or expats or non-locals. The other markets are pretty local, but this one you'll see a lot of people visiting or expats. So it has a very different feeling. The one cool thing is they do have crafts, and so that gives you a different scene than the other markets. And so I caught this guy here. Obviously, he's actually placed pretty nice, but I saw him moving the pitcher here. So I tried to catch him with using the pitcher as finishing off his body, which is not super original, but it kind of worked. I timed it pretty well, but the problem is the mess and the light just doesn't work. It could have been, the illusion could have been more enhanced if you had better light and less mess. And also if I could have been closer, but when I saw him moving, I was kind of far away. But the mess really kills it in the light. So here's another photo at this market, Feria Verde. They do have some pretty good food there. It's different than the other markets. You know, more fancy, definitely more expensive too. But here, there's a nice scene going on here. You have there's a river back here and the greenery, but I liked her stance here. She has some gesture with her arms like this and her face off like that. And then there's some connection here with probably the father and son. And then you have him back here, and then you have her bringing these yellow cups, what they use there. So I like that there's a few things going on. First I saw them, and then I saw her coming, so I timed it so she was going to be placed right there. And yeah, I got kind of what I wanted, but it does need something more interesting. I do like this part right here, but if it had more going on, maybe right here could complete it, and something a little more interesting happening too that brought me in more. Now we're going to Mercado Central Market, the oldest market in the city. Back in, I think actually 1880, back in the late 1800s it built, so really old market. If you look up online what things to see in San Jose, there's not a whole lot. That's probably going to be number one. A lot of people like going there, but a lot of locals go there too. Good prices, and you can find a lot of different things inside. So I took this photo and shared it just so you could see kind of the outside of the market. But here you have this was actually not on the day that I went inside, but as you can see, it was Sunday, so it was closed. But really, I don't shoot much in there. I'll show you one picture that I took the day before, which is inside. But inside, it's really dark, horrible light. You have some fluorescent lights here and there, as you'll see in a second here. But I took this photo. I like the colors here. I like the colors of the buildings. And then I placed this street light right here, kind of connects to that, and you have the bird up there. So it's more of just kind of a scene of what's going on. There's nothing particularly interesting going on in the photo though. So here's a photo inside. So it's a very messy market inside. It's really cramped. There's all these different stalls. It's good to check out if you just want to, you know, there's places to eat. There's all types of things to buy. Get coffee. You can get pretty much anything you want there. But for shooting, for me, it's not the place to shoot because of this light. Sometimes you do have light from outside leaking in, but a lot of times it's fluorescent. But this area was a little bit open, so I had a little more light. And I like this Jesus statue here. So I tried to place some people as they were walking by in there. But again, the light's really bad. If you wanted to shoot this, maybe you could do some flash. Still, it is very cramped inside though too. So it's not an easy place to get pictures. But I'd try to get one picture for you so you can see what it's like inside. So what I usually do if I'm going to shoot around here at all is I'll go around the whole market. So there is a lot of life surrounding the market and off of Central Avenue. It's very busy life. There are some, people selling produce and things outside here too. and you get people moving stuff from the market. So you get a lot of life, but it's moving fast and it's very messy. The reason I took this photo is I like this guy out. He's obviously has some flashy things going on with his rings and his gold and the money chain here, and then the watch here, and then the kind of turquoise outfit, Adidas outfit. So he's interesting. So that's why I took the photo. I tried to catch him as he was walking by, and it wasn't too much mess, so I placed him in between the two people here. But I don't like shots like this really because they're so messy and it's just a person moving. I don't like arms like this and things like that with the swinging movement. But you can find characters here, definitely. It's best if you can find like in a corner or something where you have some more stationary people and you can play around with it a little bit more. And now we're at Mercado Mayoreo, which might be my favorite market in the city. The one we're going to finish off with, Zapote Sunday Farmers Market, is really good too. But this one has a little more mixture of character, partly because it has a section of more of a flea market. You can't really see it. This is in the part of the section, but they're selling little trinkets, and they sell actually some store products too, like deodorant and things like that. But it's got a mixture of a lot of different stuff. A lot of it's junk, but it's interesting. But then you also have sections of produce market too. So there's a lot to see here. Very open, a lot of light. So it's good for that. I like this market, and it's in an area of some character too. There's a cemetery right by it, and there's some things going on around there, kind of a little bit more edgy area, but also colorful area. But this guy I've seen on Central Avenue quite a bit too. So he seems to be preaching like from the Bible. He's very animated, and I'm sure you've seen people like this. They stand in busy areas and they kind of speak scripture and preach. So that's what he does all by himself. And this was the first time I saw him at this market. He usually only does it on Central Avenue. But I also like, you have the Smurfs back here, you have Gizmo here. So you have this kind of interesting, and then I was trying to get him as he had some gesture, and then also this woman walked by too, and then this guy, he was checking her out, and then you have, the market. So there's a lot going on here. I like his gesture, but and I like these guys too, but at the same time, and I knew this when I was taking it, it's just so messy. So it's kind of not pretty to look at either. It's a lot of stuff going on. I like color, and there's a lot of colors here, but it's almost too much, I'd say. It's kind of busy to the point of being kind of ugly. The light isn't the best either, partly because I think I'm around here around 11 a.m. So the light's kind of harsh, and it's just too messy, but there's a lot going on. It's kind of a funny scene, just too messy, I think. Here's a photo I took. Now, I took a few photos of these girls. They were by some of the produce section here because they had this cart here and there's a bunch of dolls in there. So it was a funny scene. I actually did get a couple photos that I like better than this one that I like quite a bit. So I'm gonna hold off on showing that one because it's kind of decent. This one though is better to talk about the exercise because there's something going on here. It could have been a better photo, but I caught this, it was I think the last photo I took of the whole scene because for a while the girl was in here and they were pushing her around. So I took some photos of that, and then the mother came to get the little girl. And so when she grabbed her, I caught her as she was kind of spinning her around and picking her up and spinning her around. So I try to catch them with the mid arms and as the girl's running here and then get them in there too. So there's nice gesture here. I like this quite a bit. But one thing I wish I had done is I had aimed the camera a little bit lower. Kind of happened very quickly, in the moment, but I wish I had the camera a little bit lower so the frame kind of came up to here and came down a little bit lower here, and then maybe got a little bit more of them in there. So it's almost a little too close, or they could be closer together. Also, I lose the interest of these dolls because they're not facing. So it would be nice if these individuals were a little bit closer together so I could bring you in a little bit more and focus down a little bit more too. But that's what I was going for, more of just kind of catching. Lots of times when I take photos, I try to catch people mid-movement, mid-gesture, things like that. It can usually create a little more dynamic to it, make people look a little interesting, and give it a little more life. And now we're going to finish off at the Zapote Sunday Farmers Market. So this is a big market, and it's also pretty packed. So you have rows and aisles and rows of just stands like this. It's really big. It's built like a big square, but there's a lot of stands here, more than any of the other markets, so outside markets. So you have a lot of produce here, a lot of things like that, and there's people moving. It's a busy market. A lot of people come here, has good prices, and so you have a lot of activity, but it is a market, so you don't have a lot of variety of scenery, but you can spend quite a bit of time here. I just go up and down the different aisles and just hope I see something interesting and see what I can do with it. So with this guy, he has a mask on. Again, you have to wear masks at these markets, but with his beard like this and the cap like that, it creates some interest. Now, with everyone wearing masks lately, masks have a lot. I don't really like masks that much for photos because they take away, you know, emotion, personality, connection, everything. So they take away a lot of that, and then they've also lost a little bit of their, you know, novelty effect, kind of, you know, because they look kind of funny at times. But now we've seen so many photos of it. But in this case, you know, with beards, it still kind of looks interesting. So it adds some mystery too. So I try to catch him, try to catch the flag here, and then get the market atmosphere. But really, it's still a bit of a mess in the background, and all you have is this. So I would like a little more dynamic to the scene, a little more unique interest. Now here, I was trying to do something. Now when I'm at markets, because they're the same scenes over and over, and same backgrounds, I try to see if I can do anything to make it look a little bit unique or different. So in this case, you have this tarp section here that's going over, and I try to use that to create a little bit of an effect to make the photo look different. So I placed it in the middle, so you have the above sky here with the different flags and the poles, and then below it you have the market life, so it really separates it. So that's what I was going for. You also had this man here, so he wasn't going anywhere, and then I have the market life here. I took a few photos doing this, some with more people, but really I like the this one for how it divided the sky the most with the flags. And then some of the other ones were a little bit better when it came to interest below here. So that's what I was going for, just trying to change perspective. When you have scenes that have been seen many times, one of the best things to do is try to play with the perspective and try to make it more unique that way. Now still, I feel like it needs some more, like if I had something interesting going on here, that had a little more, you know, connection, emotion, gesture, things like that, moment, it would be could be a decent photo. But right now it's just kind of this illusion. It needs something more to bring me in. And we're going to finish off with this photo here. This is probably, out of all the photos, I like this one the best. It's busy, but it's, for how busy it is, it's pretty separated. The colors are nice. The light is okay. A lot of times I was having bad light because the clouds, or it was too harsh. But I like all the colors going on, and I really like, there's a lot to look at here. Maybe if you just glanced at it first, you wouldn't see it, but if you spend some time on it, there's a lot going on. I like the balance because you have this guy right in the middle here, and it's actually the one part that has a little bit of space and separation. And since he's right in the middle, he's somewhat interesting with the cap too, but it really adds balance because you have equal parts on both sides. They're both pretty busy. And then you have the sky here. And yeah, I like the different things to look at here. I think my favorite part is this guy right here. He's really serious, and he doesn't have a mask on, so you have some more facial expression and connection there, and he's taking a drink. And then all these colors here, the bags, the tops of the stands here. I like her right here moving with the cart. She's at an angle there. So I took the photo pretty quickly because when I saw it, I saw it. So normally I wasn't going to be looking to take a photo this big at a market because it's going to be so messy, but I could just kind of, instincts told me that it was somewhat balanced for such a big scene. So I just took the camera up. So it's at a bit of an angle, but I actually don't really mind it in this case. It might even create a little more dynamic to it. But I like how this came out because this is markets right here. This is what the Zapote market is like, and it's got nice dynamic and balance. Maybe it could use something more to bring me in. Everything's kind of far away, but in this case I don't really know if that matters because this is more about all the different things going on. So we'll see if this one grows on me. But out of all the photos, I think it's the most interesting to look at. But that brings us to the end of these markets. If you're ever in San Jose, I'd say check out the last two for sure, Mercado Mayoreo and the Zapote Sunday Farmers Market. And then of course you're going to check out the Central Avenue Market too, because or the Central Market, because you're going to pass it. The other markets, check them out too, but the last two are definitely my favorite for street photography. So now let's get out of my computer and finish this off. All right, so I hope you enjoyed going through the photos like that, got something from it, and also got to see some of the market life here in San Jose. Now, when it comes to markets, they're not always my favorite to shoot. A lot of times you get the same scenes and the same shots, but I still always check them out for street photography because it is guaranteed life, and I do like checking out the surrounding areas of markets. A lot of times that's where I get some of my better photos. So when it comes to San Jose too, you have a lot of different markets here. Now my favorite walk here is definitely the one on Central Ave, which I already covered in the previous photo walk talk, but I think after that, coming to the markets is your second best bet for street photography here in San Jose. And like I said, when you're at those markets, check out the whole area. Now these 5 markets cover different neighborhoods too, different areas. So if you do them all, you're going to see a lot of San Jose just from checking out those markets in the surrounding areas. So that brings us to the end of this photo walk talk on San Jose markets here in Costa Rica. For the next video on San Jose, Costa Rica, I'll probably do a final thoughts or final impressions video here because I won't be here much longer. It is time for me to leave, but that's what I'll probably cover next, so look forward to that. But in the meantime, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next video. Cheers.